Hey everybody, Mara Hoover here. Welcome to this week's episode of The Mara Show. I am so excited to introduce you to our incredible guest, Michelle Villalobos, today. But before I do that, I want to remind you that The Mara Show airs live every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, and we bring experts in the area of personal development, business, and relationships. And today, as I said, Michelle Villalobos is our guest. She is a branding expert, incredible woman. I am so excited to introduce her to you. First, I'm going to read her bio. Michelle Villalobos' professional education programs on personal branding, also known as turning identity into income, have been viewed either virtually or in person by over 150,000 people worldwide. In 2011, the Miami Herald named Michelle one of Miami's top 20 under 40, and in 2013, she won the Miami Herald Business Plan Challenge for co-founding the online personal branding program, Make Them Big. She's amazing. Michelle also founded the Women's Success Summit, Miami's largest business conference for entrepreneurial women. Featuring hundreds of attendees, speakers, and sponsors, Michelle has delivered programs for and/or has been sponsored by American Express, Burger King, Gibraltar Private Bank and Trust, Frito-Lay, Constant Contact, Living Social, NABO, the National Association of Women Business Owners, and Brooks Brothers, among others. Michelle regularly delivers her content to her network, and you can find her at michellevillalobos.com or just Google her. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Hi, Mara. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I am so excited to have you here, and we have just had the best time connecting over the last month or so and have had great conversations, and I am excited to share you live with my community. And the first thing I wanted to talk about is this Women's Success Summit.
Yep.
I work in the women's space. I know that you really specialize in that area as well. So what inspired you to start the Women's Success Summit?
Well, there were quite a few different factors, but one moment that I remember saying, I really have to do this, was when I went to a social media conference here in South Florida. I went in and I noticed that in the agenda there were 17 speakers. 16 of them were men in a social media conference. Now, you tell me that that's in a car engine repair conference, I got it.
Right.
But this is a social media conference, and I know that women are just as engaged, if not more engaged on social media than men are. And so I felt insulted because clearly somebody hadn't taken the time or made the effort to find women to speak at this conference. So that's when I said, you know what, I really got to do this thing. So in the first 4 summits, we didn't even allow men on stage. We didn't have a single man. Well, we did one thing. We created something called the male panel because there were men that we wanted to be with, that we wanted to feature. So we just put them all into one panel. We called it the male panel. And then we had asked the men to give them their take on women. And so that was great, but other than that, I didn't allow men to speak for the first 4 summits, pretty much, but now it's very women-focused. It's still women are the majority of the speakers, but there are things to learn from men, and there's a place for them, for sure. We're women-focused, but men-friendly, we like to say. So anyway, the Women's Success Summit, the idea was to give women not only a place to learn, but also a place to be showcased, a place to be able to be on stage and have the spotlight.
Awesome. I love it. And it's funny, you do a man panel. I actually do a man panel at my women's event, and those are the only guys allowed on stage is when. And I find that women love getting that perspective from men, and sometimes men can really give that, the real, authentic truth about, hey, girl, you got to show up for yourself. And
yeah, well, we had an interesting conversation. I'll never forget. It got heated, which I love. So I'm all about controversy, right, because that makes it interesting for the audience. It got heated because there was a conversation about, in Miami specifically, do women dress too sexy? And is it professional? What's going on? And the man, one of the guys on the panel said, listen, ladies, men are thinking about sex all the time. So if you're dressing that way and they're looking at you that way, they're not taking you seriously in business. They're thinking of you sexually. Now, which do you want? Do you want to get the deal because you got it through your mind, or do you want to distract them so much? Like, what is your goal? What's your end goal? And so the women were like, oh my God, some of them were upset. Some of them, we had another situation. I mean, that panel specifically stirs a lot of controversy.
Mm-hmm. Well, it gets the conversation going, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that idea of how should you dress, I mean, that's a great transition into what you do, which is personal branding.
You
So
got it.
you speak all over the country and world about personal branding. Can you tell me, I mean, it's a term that gets used so much. So what in the world is a personal brand, according to you, and why is it so important?
So according to me, the most important part of a brand is you can have all the intention in the world. You can believe that you know who you are and who you want to be in the world, but at the end of the day, your brand is who other people think it is. That's what it boils down to. So I like to say, you know, how they used to say it's not what you know, it's who you know. And then people were saying it's not who you know, it's who knows you. I say it's not who you know, it's who knows you, and what they say when you're not around. That's your brand. So your
Mm-hmm.
brand is really how you're perceived, how, what, you know, in a business context, your brand is whether or not people consider you for what you do. Like if you're top of mind, if they need a divorce attorney and you're a divorce attorney, are you the person that they're thinking of? Or are they like, well, no, she seems inexperienced, or, you know, I think I want somebody who's a little bit more on the mediation side. Maybe she's a little too aggressive. Like, what are they thinking about you when you're not around? What are they saying? So that's really what your brand boils down to. And then personal branding, which is the verb, right? What you're doing, that's the act of creating very intentionally what your brand is in the world. So not just leaving it up to chance and letting somebody maybe think you're really aggressive as a lawyer, or think that you're not aggressive as a lawyer, and instead saying, hey, this is how I am. I am the woman you go to when you want to sock it to him, or I'm the woman you go to when you want to have a friendly divorce with no bloodshed. So you brand yourself based on your values, based on what your purpose is in the planet. You know, it really depends on, it comes all from this piece of who are you really? What are
Mm-hmm.
you up to in the world? And that's where we develop your brand from, rather than from the outside in, which is how a lot of people perceive branding to be.
Right. I love that. So I want to talk about the steps to creating a personal brand. I know that's your area of expertise, but I think it's important that we first discuss who needs a personal brand, because I think for a lot of us, maybe we think, well, you know, Oprah, sure, she has a personal brand, or all these big names, but I'm just a this or I just do that. Do I need a personal brand? So who needs that?
Everyone needs a personal brand. If you think about it, your name, your face, like you, is the one brand that's with you forever. So you might start a business today and you might sell it, or you might shut it down, you know, whatever might happen to it, and you still have your name and your face.
Mm-hmm.
So that you take that name and that face and you parlay it into another brand and another brand and another brand. So any brand equity you build in you is always going to be well placed, because you can then leverage it later for whatever you do. So you want to be, if you're building a company or a business, which I've built the Women's Success Summit, Make Them Beg, the Superstar Speaker Academy. So I'm always building and creating new brands, but you better believe that I'm tied right in there, so that I can get some of that luster from the
Mm-hmm.
brand that I'm building that rubs off on me, and so the new projects that I'm building get some of my personal brand luster and it rubs off on them. So it's kind of a, what's the word, like an upward spiral, you know, each one helps the other. But you can't put all your eggs into your business brand basket, because if something happens to that, then you're stuck starting from scratch with nothing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, if you look at some of the most successful entrepreneurs, you look at Richard Branson, I always love to use as an
Yeah,
extreme example. He is his own brand, and he owns 472 different companies.
you got it.
So I'm sure, has a brand strategist that is building this brand of this carefree, fun, awesome guy that everyone wants to buy from, even though he probably
Exactly.
has no personal connection really in the Virgin brand itself.
And so somebody like him, for example, Warren Buffett, right, who's the same way, and
Hmm.
his brand, the Oracle of Omaha. So
Hmm.
having a smart, savvy brand, the earlier you do it, the better.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about what it takes to build a personal brand. You know, we only have a half an hour or so to go into this, and I know it's a huge process, but what do you do when you come to the table and you're going to start building a brand, and what are you really looking at to develop that?
Well, okay, so I am all about, Mara, business. I have an MBA, I have a background in mathematics and statistics. I'm a hardcore left brain person. And what I've discovered over the years is that if we skip over some of this stuff that I'm going to talk about right now, the business part never is as successful as it could have been. In other words, so the business piece, the strategy side, the monetization piece, that's all super important, and we get there. Mm-hmm. But where we have to start for a personal brand is what is authentic, what is really, really you. So like you, for example, you clearly have chosen to be your complete, total best self all the time, right? You dress different than most people. You stand out, your hair, your makeup, your hats. Like, you are intentional about being memorable and being compelling, right? But that, it's not like you're faking it. You didn't say, okay, I want to be like that in order to build my brand. You said, I want to be like the best version of myself. So we have to go in deep. So the first step in personal branding that we do in our process is we do personality and strengths testing. We do a whole battery of personality tests. Depending on the person, we determine which test, but at the very least we do a strengths finder analysis and a wealth dynamics profile. And those two things give us a lot of information about who this person is, how they operate in the world, what they love to do, and how wealth is going to be easiest for them to attract. So that's the step one, is we get really clear about who is this individual. Okay. Then we say, all right, now that we know who this individual is, let's look at what they want to create in their life. Like, what's important to them? So we look at their purpose, their mission, their values. So like for me, right, and you can probably see this when you go onto my website, you'll get to see this very clearly in my brand. What matters to me is freedom and fun and excellence. So I'm all, and learning, and I have a whole lot of values, but when I was starting my business, before I knew all this stuff about personal branding, I built a brand for myself that looked like it belonged on a McKinsey consulting website. Like, it was super boring, it was navy blue and black and white, and it was all text and information and research, and there was very little Michelle, there was very little fun, there was no color at all. And it fell flat. People didn't respond to it. So, right. So from the who are you, what I wanted to create, well, when I realized, well, I love to be passionate, I love to be creative, I love to learn things, I love to teach, then I started to mold my brand around that. So what we do with our clients is we get really clear about what they want, and then from there we make sure that their business model is aligned. Okay. Because a lot of times people are starting from scratch, but most of the time we're working with people who are established at a certain level already. So we have to make sure that their business model is a fit for who they are and what they want. So we look at, then we start looking at the business piece, like the strategy. So how are you making money? Are you time for money? Are you exchanging time for money, or are you leveraging yourself? And if not, how do we plan that for the future? So we built the basic architecture of their business model, and then we look at, all right, how do we brand this thing? So we start with headshots. We look at color schemes, fonts, typefaces. Then we get into all this tactical stuff. What does the website look like, or what does it need to look like? Social media presence, like all that comes from the brand. And I almost forgot the most important part, the message. What's the brand message? Like, your message is FemPower. That's one of your messages, right? Right. My message is Googleicious, which you'll hear about later, or Make Them Beg is one of my messages. Like, get people to comfort to you instead of you going out to them. So what's the messaging for your brand that's aligned with who you are, why you're here, and then what kind of business you're building? And then from there, it's just the rest of it's just easy stuff. Like, what are you posting online? Are you blogging? Are you using Google Hangouts? Are you using video? Those are all, people get so caught up in that stuff. And that stuff reveals itself once we're clear about the brand. Like, my brand, I want to be a thought leader. So I write a lot, and I write really deep, important articles, and I get really good feedback on it. So my main method of communication is through my blog. Okay. So then we identify that once we're really clear about the brand, the media and the messaging becomes more obvious.
So really the approach is, instead of, because I always talk to business owners about, you can start a business and build a business, and then a year later you realize you've built Frankenstein, and you just don't love it anymore, because you didn't start out from that architecting of what is it that I actually want to create for myself and in the world, and what's my lifestyle going to be.
You got it.
And I love that you start from that perspective.
You have to.
Yeah, yeah. So my question for you is, as someone's building a personal brand, I'm sure you've seen some oopsies or uh-ohs, or maybe that wasn't such a good idea. So what are some of the mistakes that you see people are making as they are working on creating a personal brand, or maybe accidentally creating a personal brand?
Yeah, well, I told you a little bit about, I make a lot of mistakes, you know, and I'm really clear that when so I have this line, I think we talked about it recently. I always say the uh-oh precedes the aha. So it's usually the mistakes that end up becoming the basis for your improvements, right? But my biggest mistake when I started out, for example, was the fact that I built the website. I still use it in my presentations. I show people my old website, and it's so embarrassing still. It's this white with navy blue. There's no picture of me on the homepage. It's all like, I think I used Comic Sans font. So it's like picking just horrible, making bad choices. I think the biggest mistake that I see people make is that they do it themselves, because that's what I did. These days, I have a lot of help. I have like 5 business coaches of different, I have a story coach, a marketing coach, a business coach, I have a health coach, and I have a speaking coach. So now I'm surrounded by support and mentors. But back in the day, I would say that's the biggest mistake. And the other biggest mistake is to ask your mother, your husband, your best friend what they think. Because usually they give bad advice. And what I found for the most part is those people are very much more risk averse than you should be, or than your mentors are going to be. So those people are usually like, oh, are you sure you want to put that picture of you holding all the Sharpies out there? It's a little too girly, or it's a little too cutesy. I think you should look more serious, right? Imagine if, because that was my first really well-branded profile picture, and I got that feedback from my best friend. And I ignored it, thank goodness, but that's what she said, So I say ask an expert, get some mentorship. That's really the biggest mistake I see, is that people trying to do everything by themselves.
Right. So for you personally, you started building a brand, realized, okay, this isn't necessarily working, it doesn't resonate with me, got some mentorship and support, and then how have you obviously used your own branding process in building your current brand. Is that right?
Got it. Yeah. Yeah, it's more meandery process than what we teach now, right? Because it was built through trial and error. I joke it's taken me 7 years to do it. If I had to do it all over again starting today, I could do it in 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
So is that really what when you're working with a client, what that looks like? It can be a 6-month process that you're going to walk them through and take them through each one of these different steps so that they come out the other end with a full, beautiful brand that really resonates with them.
You got it. We have a program that's 6 months, and we have one that's a year. Like the 6-month program is a little bit more compact. It's not quite as intense.
Okay.
And then the year program, that's for people who are like, they're committed. In the year program, like we build their website for them. We do their demo reel, their sizzle reel. We have that program for speakers, specifically speakers, authors, coaches. But I'm working, Mara. I'm trying to actually, put it out there. I'm looking for someone who can help me take this process, and I want to compact it into a 12-week, weekly online program. That's my dream. I want to get it into a 12-week online program where people can they get each week, and they get a call each week, like a group call. That's what I'm working on right now. I think I can get it down to 12 weeks. Now, maybe they wouldn't have all the outcomes yet in 12 weeks, but if they could put in all the work and get everything created in 12 weeks, that's my dream. It might be a little too ambitious. We'll see. But yeah, 6 months is a good window.
Yeah, especially if they're going to work with you personally, it gives you a chance to get to know them. And that's one of the things I love about your business is you offer a way that people can plug in if it's an online course, which is what you're talking about creating, or if it's working with you personally, whether that's the 6-month or the year-long program. So if somebody wants to start creating a brand for themselves, and maybe they're going to get help, maybe they're not, but what's the very first step that they need to take in order to make this happen for themselves?
Okay, so let's pretend that they're already clear about who they are, why they're here, what they're up to. Let's pretend that that stuff is clear.
Okay.
Because I don't want to go into that, you know, go take this personality type test. I want to get into like the branding stuff. So the first thing that they would need to do is own, I call it own your name. Meaning own your name everywhere you possibly can. It takes about, I created a Googleicious, which we're going to give to anybody who's listening, by the way. It's a program, we sell it, we're giving it away to your people, which is a 30-day own your name jumpstart guide. So what you want to do is, I'll give you the broad strokes. Basically you want to first of all, you want to choose your name. And I know that sounds a little obvious, but for example, Michelle Villalobos, believe it or not, there are other Michelle Villaloboses out there. I couldn't believe it myself when I found them, because I always thought my name was so unique, but it's not that unique. And so there was, if you would type in Michelle Villalobos when I started this process, you'd find me, but I was at the bottom of page 1 or page 2. I wasn't the first result, and I certainly didn't own the whole page of results. So you have to choose your name first. So what I started with was Michelle E. Villalobos. That I knew I could own because nobody else was really. If you typed in Michelle E. Villalobos, not one single person didn't come up. So I started using that in all my social media profiles. I started using that, and I owned that. And then as I started to put my name elsewhere and put out content with my name attached to it and use more and more social profiles, I started to own Michelle Villalobos by itself. Now you can type in Michelle Villa anything, and you're going to find me because Google knows that that's who you're probably looking for. So in other words, the Googleicious guide is how to own your name, how to become ubiquitous online, and how to create a nice, solid, aligned, congruent brand for yourself on the internet. You want to take some great headshots. Here's where to put them. Here's how to tag them. So it's a whole bunch of things, but ultimately you want to own your name online so that when people hear about you or they meet you, they can immediately go to the website, to the internet, and find you and find a lot about you. People love to stalk people online. So be stalkable. That's really the first piece.
I'm going to write that down right now. Be stalkable. Okay, so here's my question for you. It's a personal question. I have always wanted to brand just by my first name.
Yeah.
There's a few Maras out there, but I think like Oprah, Ellen, I could do Mara. So what would be that? Walk me through the process quickly. Like how would that work so that can kind of explain to people what they're going to get out of that Googleicious guide?
Okay, well, in Googleicious, let's talk first about your Mara Hoover, and then we'll talk about Googleicious. So, what I would suggest for you, Mara, is to start highlighting the Mara bigger or in some different type of font, and there would be a transition process.
Got it.
Right? Because it wasn't always Oprah. It was Oprah Winfrey in the beginning.
Right.
It wasn't always Ellen. It was Ellen DeGeneres. So they started. Cher has always been Cher, though, right? Yeah.
And Madonna, I think, has always been Madonna.
But those two names are very different too. You do have some competition with your name, Mara. So you'd want to start, like, for example, for the next few months, I would change either the font of Mara, put it into some like cursive or something to make it stand out, or make it bigger. I would actually, give it some sort of typeface treatment so that the Mara stands out. And then wherever you put Mara, make sure that it's standing out. So even where you have it in your lower third here, where it says Mara Show, put Mara in a different color.
Got it.
Right? So start like highlighting Mara, like on the on the corner of your in your email signature, Mara, the same font. So start to just focus on the Mara, and over time you could be able to own it. Now what you'd want to do is you'd want to start tagging everything with just Mara. So for example on YouTube, all these videos, go back in and tag them with Mara by itself. Go back into, so just upload. What I do to own a lot of results all at once is I take my slideshows. This is a trick that I think we talk about it in Googleicious. I export my slideshows to JPEGs. So then I have like 95 slides that are all JPEGs. Well, first of all, I name the file Michelle Villalobos, Michelle-Villalobos, right? So I
Okay.
name the file, the PowerPoint file or the Keynote file, my name. Then when I export it, each of those slides has my name on it. Then I upload those slides into Flickr. Now Flickr, when you upload things into Flickr, the name of the file becomes one of the tags. So
Okay.
it tags, so that now all of a sudden I have 95 new results on Flickr with my name on it. So you could do the same thing with just Mara on it. That would give you like 95 results. So you just want, it's volume. Google is for now at least. And then there's a lot of, it changes a lot. And SEO I think is kind of on its way out a little bit, even though I
Yeah.
still use it. But for now, just bombarding Google with that name on everything and just over and over and over, that's going to help. And then, you've got to just have bigger and more traffic attached to that. So the Googleicious guide is the first 30 days. It's things like that, tactical things about how to choose your name if your name is common, where to put it, what profiles to fill out, what's important. It talks to you about, gosh, it's so much, even how to pick a typeface for your name. We get into some serious branding stuff in that Googleicious guide because we wanted 4 weeks worth of intense content.
Yeah, awesome. Well, for those of you that are just joining us, I'm Mara Hoover, and I'm the founder of The Mara Show. And we have with us today Michelle Villalobos. The point of The Mara Show is to bring you amazing experts in the area of personal development, business, and relationships. And each of our guests gives away a free gift. So if you want to head over to themarashow.com right now, you can subscribe and have access to all of the archives, all of our past guests, and all of their gifts. And in just a little bit, Michelle's going to be talking to us about her gift that she's going to be giving away. We've been talking a little bit about this Googleicious guide and what's coming, what you can do to actually be able to begin to own your name online. So my question for you, Michelle, the next question is about brand development over time. You've started a couple of different companies. You've created a great brand for yourself around your name and your companies. So how do you transition into the next step for your brand and make those decisions of how you want to further develop the brand, and what do you see coming for you over the next decade or so?
Yeah. Oh, I love the next decade or so. I'm really excited. So for me, my brand is, it's getting deeper. It's getting more focused on. So for example, in the beginning, I focused a lot on tactical things, like how to generate more leads and referrals, how to generate more sales. And I still do all of that with my clients. But I found that that's sort of like, that stuff can happen once a lot of other stuff has happened. So I'm getting more and more into the earlier stages. So like I told you, the part where we're really discovering with people who they are, what they want, what they're all about. Like I'm finding out it's so much more important to get that part right than to do the tactical stuff right away. I mean, that stuff is waiting. So as I'm transitioning, I'm working on a new project called No Cartwheels in the House. And just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, make it more concrete. So what I'm finding, especially with the women that I work with, is that they get stuck up here. They're not getting stuck with the execution and the tactics. Like they're getting stuck earlier than that. And a lot of it is this idea, or not idea, but this process that happens when we're younger, which is the process of making us quieter, making us smaller, making us less threatening, making us sweeter and nicer and easier to be around, which are not the same skills that are really associated with great success in our culture. And so as women, we're taught this, and I think it's actually getting worse, not better. So this is where there's a little controversy here. A lot of people don't agree with me on this. People are like, no, women are becoming more empowered. Women are getting, more college degrees. True, but I'm also seeing a lot more self-objectification of women in the media, and in pop music, in hip hop music, which I love hip hop. I'm a dancer, and I listen to the lyrics, and it depresses the hell out of me. So back to my point is that women are growing up with all these messages about how they have to be beautiful and sexy and smart and all these things, and there's all this pressure. And what's happening is that our authentic self is getting lost. And so that's the story of No Cartwheels in the House, is the story of, as we grow up, how we lose our really core, authentic, wonderful self, and we start to doubt that person, and we doubt, the value of that person. So the No Cartwheels in the House story is a fictional novel that I'm writing with that. So it's completely different. It's not business. I mean, it is business. It will be, business in the sense that it should be for everybody, but it's a much broader conversation than I've ever engaged in before. And that's what I see myself doing in the future. I truly want to be a thought leader for women, helping women make more money, be more fulfilled, have more success, be taken more seriously, have more respect, all of it. That's what I'm up to.
I love that. And we had a conversation recently about when I named my company FemPower You, and all of the people who said, "Are you sure you really want to use that word power?" And it's so true. It's taking our generation, taking those next steps to pave the way for women to be able to throw all those shoulds and supposed tos out the window and create a life that they really love based on what they want instead of what they feel like they're supposed to want.
Exactly. And what they feel like they should do based on these external things versus based on these internal things.
Right, and everything that's inside of them.
Yeah.
So I know through this whole interview, everyone has been ready to get their hands on the Googleicious Guide. So tell us just a little bit more about what people can expect from that, and then I'll tell them how they can go and get it at themarashow.com.
Awesome. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually take you through basically the table of contents of Googleicious. So the 4-week game plan, it starts with week 1, own your name. So establishing your baseline to understand where you are right now, setting your Google alerts, claiming basic profiles and so that you have volume, buying your URL for your name or URLs based on where you are now versus where you want to go. Then we get into week 2, which we call the gather and define. So we do something where we call the great gathering, where you go into your archives, your closet, your file cabinets, your albums, your Facebook, and gather material. So we're looking for awards that you've won, certificates, commendations, anything that, pictures of you with celebrities or with thought leaders in your industry. Just, there's so many things that we don't think are relevant, but can be once we put the glasses on of all right, this is me building my personal brand, right? So that's called the Great Gathering, and that's a lot of work, but it's really fun because it's a trip down memory lane. We talk about getting your headshots shot and give you a 10-step guide to how to do that effectively. Developing your unique selling proposition that's going to be accompanying all of your online materials and all of your profiles. Establishing the keywords for the tagging that we were talking about, like what we want to tag you with on YouTube. Developing your elevator pitch. So even though that's not online, it's something you can use in person, but you can also put it on your signature, on your business card, and designing your visual identity. Then week 3 is about deploying the brand, so fleshing out the profiles more, so really filling them in and making them rich. Changing your email signature, how to do that, like what's a good email signature, what it needs to include, how to use it strategically instead of just having it be your contact info. Designing a new business card, building a home base, and then keeping the last week is about warming up your network, keeping your network warm. So talking about, email marketing and growing your list, growing your platform, and then ultimately, kind of establishing where are you going with this, what's your long-term plan. So that takes you through the first month, basically, of very tactical personal branding work.
Wow, that's an amazing gift.
Thank you.
And you normally sell that for $197, is that right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so you're giving that away. I love it.
Yeah.
So everyone who's watching live and then checking out these archives, I encourage you to head over to themarashow.com. You can subscribe there for access to our archives. Search for Michelle Villalobos interview, and right underneath it we're going to have a button. So it's really easy. You just click that button. It's going to take you directly to the page where you can download the Googleicious Guide and get started to claiming and owning your name online and beginning to build that personal brand. Michelle, as we wrap up, what is the best way for people to stay in contact with you, read these thought leader blogs and everything that you've got going on so that they can stay up to date?
Well, you know what? Honestly, the easiest way to find me is just to Google me. And like I said, you can even misspell my name. But my basic website is my name, Michelle Villalobos, which is Michelle with 2 L's, and Villalobos is for the gringos, Villalobos, Villalobos. And so that's my main website. You can log in there, and you can get access to my content library. And you can contact me through there. You can also connect with me on social media. LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. I'm pretty much the first one that pops up on all of those. So feel free to connect with me there.
Awesome. And what I love about sharing that is it lets people actually check out your brand and see how you've done it and see that it actually works. So instead of typing in michellevillalobos.com, go ahead and Google it and see all of those different pieces that pop up and realize what a great brand Michelle has created for herself and what she can help you do through both the Googleicious Guide and then her upcoming 12-week, her 6-month program, and her 12-month program. And Michelle, I want to thank you so much for being here today. It was such a great conversation. I loved learning more about your perspective, what you bring to the world of branding, and I can't wait for our next adventure together.
Yay! Awesome. Thank you, Mara. Have a good one.
Thank you. You too. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
See you next time.